Hey, it's Terry, and welcome to the podcast. Now, let me introduce you to Skylar Zerr, who is a 3D animation director at Arcana Studio. And if Arcana Studio sounds familiar to you, that is because I interviewed the founder and CEO in last week's episode. But in this episode, Skylar is going to reveal the skills he worked on to go from animation graduate at Vancouver's Visual College of Art and Design to animation director at Arcana. And besides his specialty of punching emotion into inanimate objects and creatures through 3D animation, Skylar is also a proud father of one, and he met his wife at the Orpheum in Vancouver, who he also runs a food business on the side with. Now, let's just jump right in. Hi, Skylar. Thanks for coming on the podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, Terry, it's good, man. Doing good. I'm still at work. It's still at my Discord is we work at our studio. We work off of the Discord platform. So I know a lot of studios use Slack or their own priority. I don't know what the word is, but they have their own software for chatting.
Yeah.
We use Discord, and right now I'm looking down at it. It's just beeping nonstop, and it's like 9+.
Oh man,
sure
I hate
it's like
that.
99+.
It's so annoying. Like I wish they'd just change to something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're using work time to come on a podcast, and I hope your boss is listening to this. Also, your boss was on this podcast and used his own work time to come on this podcast too a while back. So he will be okay with that. Cool. And you're working from home right now, obviously, right? Because of COVID, you haven't. Like things in Vancouver, I feel like are a little bit more lax than they are here in Toronto. We're still in pretty much lockdown situation.
Oh yeah, it's all remote. It's been remote since they announced the state of emergency.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to chat all about your journey, and because you've kind of an interesting journey of coming from, I guess, mainland BC, as you told me, and then coming to Vancouver with big dreams, and then getting burnt out at a certain point after running the gauntlet, and then trying to get back in and working your way up to animation director, which I think is incredible. So let's backtrack it a little bit and tell me about those big dreams you had as a kid, and what made you pursue this roller coaster career path.
Yeah. Well, just as a kid, I don't know if this is really relevant, and I don't think that people need to feel like they had this in their childhood. But for me, I had, when I was a kid, I would draw like these worlds of like creatures. I would do, like Ninja Turtles is turtles with bandanas. Well, my thing was dinosaurs with bandanas, and they had their own worlds and their own.
Hey, were they Teenage Mutant Ninja Dinosaurs?
Basically, but I got really deep with that. Like I had them in underground or underwater worlds. I had them, like I had it all fleshed out, and yeah, so that was as a really young child. That's what I would draw. And then I stopped all art stuff all the way through high school. I did nothing. And then I started playing a video game called Mass Effect.
Okay.
Mass Effect, when I played that game, I don't know, it put something inside of me that made me want to be involved in the industry. I didn't know at this point whether I was going to be an animator or whether I was going to be a video game designer or whatever. I was like, this is so neat. This game really inspired me. I want to do this. And I think that was when I was 18 years old. That was 13 years ago or something. But from that seed, I remember I typed in Google at the time, which was like a new thing back then, like Vancouver animation school, because I live outside of Vancouver. It's like, well, it's the closest place. And sure enough, an advertisement popped up, and I clicked it and I signed up. And I didn't even know anything about the school. I didn't know if I could qualify or anything. That's how I got started.
Which school was it?
Yeah, at the time it was called the Vancouver College of Art and Design.
Yeah.
I think they've changed their name now. I think it's the Visual College of Art and Design. But yeah.
Kept the acronym with the V in there. That's easy.
Yep.
So did you have to put together a portfolio, or it was just like, hey, you signed up, you're in, your high school grades were like passable, so it's all good?
Yeah, I sent them my high school grades, and I think literally that's it. Like they may or may not have been struggling financially for students. So it didn't take much. I'm not going to lie to you, Terry.
We're glad to have you.
Oh, you pass automatically.
Fun. Give us your money. I mean, fair. So, okay. So it sounds like that was kind of pivotal in entering the industry for you. Is that like the number one thing that got you a job after school was going to that school? Like, did they set you up with an internship and everything?
No, they don't. That school didn't really help me
Oh,
with a whole lot. It was what I appreciated about this school was it made me more of a technician. Like, here's a bunch of software. This is how you use the software, but like this is not how you animate. So essentially, basically I'm a self-taught animator. So from there, I practiced. I spent hours and hours. I remember the cat tail. It's an assignment that a lot of animators will get assigned when they're in school. But I could not animate the cattail, especially in 2D. So like I had in my room, I was literally on both sides of my chair. There were piles, mounds of paper because I wouldn't give up on this freaking cattail. And
you're
I
talking
have
about like the S and C curve of a tail moving on like a ball.
exactly
Yeah.
100%, 100%. I couldn't like I don't know what it was. I couldn't imagine it, and
Huh.
I was thinking of it the wrong way. So I was drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, and I eventually, you know, I drew the cattail S curve.
Did something click? Like, obviously you're an animation director now who can do a cattail in his sleep. But what was,
Mhm.
other than just mounds of paper, what was the thinking differently that got you to figure it out?
I don't know.
You were largely doing it on your own.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have like a mind block, and honestly, it was like a mind block. I had to get past. I had to get through it. It was like it's like a wave, right? But I couldn't imagine the wave happening for some reason. So what ended up happening is a day before the assignment was due, I spent the whole week. I didn't work on any of my other classes. Spent the whole week on this cat's tail. And the day before, actually, pretty sure it was an hour before my class, something clicked, just like you said. Something clicked, and I started drawing the tail. And I was like, "Oh, there's the wave. Oh, I see it." And then I don't know, submitted my assignment, and I think I got 80%.
Nice. What an experience. I hope everything after that was a breeze and not so.
Oh, it was a lot easier. And my roommate, like, he thought I was crazy. Like, he'd open my door, or at least I would open my door, and my paper would spill out into like the common area.
So tell me how you got your first job in Vancouver, because you had that dream, you moved to the big city, you were in animation school, you figured out the cattail.
Yeah. So the first job, it was quite difficult. My demo reel wasn't that strong because I'm more of a self-taught. Like my school had animators as teachers, but they more taught you how to be a generalist, and I feel like this is the case for a lot of schools out there.
Yeah, yeah.
They will teach you to be a generalist or a Maya technician, as I like to refer to it, as or even like ZBrush, like all the software that you don't really need as an animator. So I don't know if there's where if I were to give advice or whatever, but if there are people listening to this who are in the middle of school and they don't know what a focus is yet, I would just pick a focus and go for it, because a 3D generalist out of school it's a bit tough, and it was tough for me. I applied to hundreds of studios, and well, maybe not hundreds, but in Vancouver, it is the largest, I don't know, cluster of visual effects and animation studios in the world.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. There's over 60 studios in that cluster.
That's insane. So you applied, I'm assuming, to as many as you could, so maybe 60. How many interviews did you get? Because like this is reminding me of when I came out of business school. I had like a spreadsheet to track it all. I applied to 150 jobs. I got 15 interviews, and I got
Nice.
I think it was like 5 offers or something at the end of the day. It was like a 15 15 5 thing all the way down,
Oh
something
wow.
like that. But it took me a long time. Like, so was it similar for you? Like 60
Yes, I think
jobs?
it actually is very similar to those numbers. I think I had 3 interviews though.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
3 interviews and I got one offer. So a little bit tighter there. But yeah, I was living in Vancouver working in like as a warehouse dude. Like I was hustling packages like
Dude.
through as a shipping clerk.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to get in. Like there's that big struggle just to get in. And I was just trying to do that. So, and I got an offer eventually.
Nice.
It took a year of applying and refining my demo reel after I graduated, but I got an offer. They asked me to submit a piece of dialogue between two characters, and that was all I needed. So I animated that over a weekend,
This is
and
after showing them your demo reel.
oh yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
Is that normal to do an animation test after a demo reel you submit?
Um, that's a good question. I think they were maybe they were, I don't know what they were, but they were just not fully certain about me
Fair, fair.
as a first hire. Like I had no other experience. What I did try to do during the time I was unemployed, or rather not employed in the animation industry, was I was always doing art related stuff. Like I had a small gig as a storyboard artist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was more like a thumbnailist person. Like I did tons of thumbnails. And that was a really cool experience for me as well. It was more of a, I didn't list it in my portfolio just because it lasted like 2 or 3 weeks, but I would do stuff like that. And I would do artwork for um, like 3D artwork. I would try to do it for artists that needed it just for free, like some musician friends and stuff like that. So yeah.
I'm just thinking, you said it's not optimal to be a generalist when you're applying out of school. Given, you know, thinking about your career path and where it's landed now, if you were to go back, what would you have specialized in to end up where you are now, maybe quicker, or uh, to close that year gap to maybe be a couple months instead?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to know what you're going to school for. I was going to school to discover, I
Mm.
felt. So a year into school, I decided that I was going to be an animator. So that just left me with like a year left. So there was a year essentially just wasted doing,
Wait, school's only 2 years for you.
yeah, it's 2 year
Oh, wow,
diploma.
so quick.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep, that was quick. But
So,
yeah, so I had to decide. There will come a point where you actually know you have to decide.
mm,
Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck. So I was like, I honestly, it was a little bit of a random choice. I was like, well, I like modeling. I like doing art for, whatever, texture artists for video games, stuff like that, low poly modeling. But I thought, you know what, I have a spark in this. And why I thought I would be successful is because I had an eye for animation. And I think that is a common factor, among animators is if you can tell something is wrong with like a person, like a walk cycle or something, you feel like something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it. I think just having that sense, a lot of people don't have that sense. Like as an animation director now, I have a lot of artists that will submit shots to me for approval, and I'm looking at them like I'm surprised that you can't see the amount of issues that are in some of the submissions that I get. I don't want to say like, a certain artist, but sometimes I'll get shots. I'll almost be shocked, like, wow, you didn't notice this. So I've always had that. I guess it's an eye for what you see in nature. I guess physics, like the weight of an object or how a ball bounces. You can tell when it's fake.
oh yeah, totally. And I like what you're saying because like, for instance, I'm thinking about my perception. Like I really enjoy beautiful layouts with like amazing perspective and stuff, but I don't have that eye really to instantly tell when something is off. Like I really have to study it and like apply the principles that I've learned. Versus like for animation or like stop motion is kind of my specialty.
Oh,
It's like
cool.
an instant feeling gut reaction where I am like internally critiquing it as I'm experiencing it, I guess. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what you kind of mean?
That's exactly what I mean. It's almost like a muscle
Yeah, yeah,
or a reaction where you're looking at something like, whoa, something just caught, like my muscle just like, I don't know, it's activated.
yeah.
And I remember always having that, which was kind of to my benefit.
Well, so I mean, this is your professional career now. Is that I guess I'm asking, is that been the right choice for you all this time? And is that kind of instinct led you to really hone your skill and move up in your career in that aspect?
I think so. It's really helped me. It's been by my side. It's kind of guided me through my animation career. I went from an animation PA, which is not even, it's like the lowest rank of an animator. You don't even get the title of animator or junior animator. It's like you're an animation PA.
So what do you do as an animation PA?
You animate.
What are you animating though? If you don't even get the role as an animator, like
They just don't give you the dignity of it. You do the same job as any of the animators.
So then why is it a separate thing? Is it just so they don't have to pay you as much? Is it like
I feel like
a
that's
proof
probably,
of rights to go?
yeah,
Like,
it's a proof of rights. It's something like that. I remember my first job. So at this place that eventually gave me the offer. So this is the kind of place it was. This sweat house. It was a terrible place to work. The atmosphere was really enticing because you walk in, and right out of school, you're just, wow, you worked on this, you're working on that, and you're just like consumed by the culture. You're like, oh my God, this is where it's at. I need to stay in this company. I need to do whatever it takes to survive. And that place it's a bit of a sweatshop, that place. It was, I was telling you a bit earlier that my first job as an animator, they didn't even call me an animator. They called me an animation PA.
that stinks.
Yeah, and it was
It's ridiculous to
$15
me
an
for a
hour.
company to be like, how can we pay people even less? I mean, that makes sense because companies do that, but it's like, we'll hire people at an even lower level and get them to do the same amount of work and then feed them this narrative that they can work their way up after they've been a sweatshop for a while. That's what it sounds like to me.
This place, okay, so it is a studio in Vancouver. I won't say the name, but if there are listeners from Vancouver, I'm pretty sure you will know what this place is called. But yeah, they would do just what you said. It was like, you're an animation PA. I had the same quota. So they had this AI algorithm that told you how many frames you should be animating, and it would randomly assign you stuff. And sometimes I would get a shot and it was like 8 characters, 16 frames, and like 20 props. So I was like, oh, what the heck? So I would actually set up the shot. They made you do the layout too. I would set up the shot, and after I finished setting it up, my 3 hours of my day was gone, just from getting the characters in, the props in, their initial posing in. It was 3 hours. It was gone, and the quota for 16 frames was 2.5 hours. So I haven't even started animating yet, and I'm already 3 hours is gone, and I'm behind. So that was
screw you.
essentially, yeah.
So you were telling me earlier this experience led to some, I'm assuming it's this experience that led to some burnout.
Yeah. So after, I think I spent 3 months in the studio. I remember
So this is your first job out of school, 3 months in the studio, working like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a young kid too. I rented a place in Vancouver for this job. I did everything. Like,
oh man, Vancouver
I committed.
has rent crazy. So back in the day, was it still that crazy?
It was crazy, but it was actually, that was the best experience about this whole thing, was my roommate. So I guess they housed a lot of international students, and I had 8 roommates. They're all from Japan, and they became some of my best friends. It was the coolest time. So these Japanese people, they really admired me for some reason. I still can't figure out why. They just wanted to spend time with me and talk to me and hang out. And I actually ended up, after this whole thing was over, I moved out of Vancouver. I invited the whole schwack of them to my house, my parents' house. We had this awesome time together. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds like a really cool experience. At first I was like, I'm sorry, 8 roommates. That sounds way too much.
It was awesome, man. I really enjoyed it. And they could, I don't know, they could drink, those people. Holy cow.
So tell me about this burnout experience. So after only 3 months, you were like, I've had enough.
Oh yeah, 3 months is all it took.
Oh man, that's
Three
crazy. Like this was your dream. You like gave up everything, moved to Vancouver, went to this school, spent a year applying to every job. 3 months in.
3 months, man. It's
Wow.
all it took. It was honestly, it was, I can't, just thinking about it, man. It was like so much anxiety. I remember at some point, towards the end, I was sitting there on a Sunday. I was doing 15-hour days, and then I was coming in Saturday, Sunday to fill up my quota, and I was still behind. But I would do this, and I thought I had to. I thought like this is what I had to do, and this was the dream. This was the passion, and I was getting paid $15 an hour, and working, and they only paid me for 8 hours. So it was just a miserable experience. It was miserable. And I remember one time I was in on a Sunday, and I just started to feel my chest hurt. And looking back to it, I know it was. It was an anxiety attack. It was like my chest is physically in pain,
Mhm.
and my head started filling with like I started to feel really really lost. Like, what am I doing? What is going on? I need to go. So I got up. I left the computer on. My shots are all open. Everything is everywhere. And I walked out of the studio, and I didn't go back until, well, I guess it was the next morning. But I went back, and I remember my production supervisor pulling me aside and saying, "Hey, we got to talk to you." And we went to this, we left the studio to a different building. It was like an office style building. And they sat me down and said, "It's not working out. Like, we're going to have to, I'm sorry it didn't work out with you, but it's not working out." And I think what it was I was spending so many hours there and not producing the amount that they felt I should have been producing for the amount of hours I was there. So they were
Were the-
looking at my clock in times, not the 8 hours that I would work,
Fair.
or not the 8 hours that you were sanctioned to do. So, anyways, most people I feel like would have been really uh, sad and depressed and like, well, what am I going to do next if they lost their job? But for me, it was like, thank God this is over. this
Yeah.
was this was awful. I remember I walked away, and I just felt like 1,000-pound weight was off my shoulders. And I pretty much at that point I said, I'm never doing this again. That's it. Like, I'm finished with this. This was not the right career choice for me. I made a big mistake. And I moved out of Vancouver. I moved to back to my hometown with my parents. Tiny little town of 6,000 people. And I just started doing construction. Like, I was a laminate flooring installer. I would install floors and drywall and all that kind of stuff.
How did it feel to go back home after spending uh 2 years in school, a year looking for a job? So like I guess 3 years and 3 months, and then to come back home and say like, how did that feel? Because you just told me that you didn't want to ever do that again. Like,
Well, it doesn't feel good. I mean, I was back in my parents' like basement, essentially, as the
yeah.
stereotype goes. That's what I did. And I was on the couch. I didn't even have a room because I have like six brothers, and they were still all there.
You're
Yeah, I
used
got
to
a big
being
family.
around a lot of people all the time. Eight
Yeah.
roommates, six brothers. Oh
I got a sister too.
my-
But yeah.
okay. All right. So how did you, so you're back home, you're sleeping on a couch, you're doing construction. What made you decide to give it a try again?
Well, one of my colleagues from school, uh, he told me about the studio he was working in. I remember sometimes at nighttime, like right before I'm falling asleep, I would start to think about animation. I would start to be like, hey, wouldn't that be great if there was an animation job that was normal that I could do? And I would think about this, and I would get a little bit teary eyed. Actually, in all honesty, I would start to like get a little bit emotional because that's what I wanted to do. And then I remember one day I got a message, like a Google Hangouts message from one of my colleagues that's saying, we really need you at the studio. Do you want to come back? And this is for Arcana. He was the lead animator there, he was the animation director at the time.
Nice.
But he said that he knew I was a decent animator, so that's why he reached out to me.
Where did he know you from? Was it the previous job that you had? Or
Oh yeah, so we went to school together.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. So why did he reach out to you specifically though?
I'm not sure. We kind of kept in contact. I amounted to that. That we were kind of friends still. He knew I was a decent animator. Hey, why not? Huh. He convinced Sean, who is my current boss and was the CEO back then, still is, to give me an interview. So that was back in Burnaby though, and I didn't want to go back.
Yeah. So
now it was this weird opposite struggle where Sean, I did some work for him as like a test. So he had a super small production about a cat, and it was for a storybook release or a comic book release, and they wanted a little animated feature for it. So I did the whole thing. I did the feature in like 2 weeks. I think there was like 30 or 40 shots. They were all pretty long shots, but one character, a few props, and he apparently he loved it.
Wait, so did he ask you to do the whole feature, or you just went to town?
He asked me to do it.
Okay.
I did it remotely before we could even work remotely properly.
Yeah.
So I would save my Maya files on a thumbstick, and I would drive out to Burnaby once a week and pretty much deliver them.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Because they're pretty large files at that time. It was like I had to put them in the pipeline and all that stuff. So I just thought, oh, I'll just do it, because I couldn't really get into their servers right from home.
Yeah.
Back then. This was early 2015. Our studio was pretty small.
I was going to say, because the first story you told me, there was no such thing as Google. It was just starting out. Now we're at Google Hangouts. So some years have passed.
Yeah. And Facebook was just
is brand new.
The iPhone 1 and Facebook, Google all started around the same time.
At the dawn of the age of technology, iPhone 1, Facebook.
Yep.
So Sean was really impressed with this feature that you produced, and then he was just like, "Come on board, you're animation director." Like, how did you start at Arcana then?
Yeah. So he really liked that work. So he would beg. I don't want to say beg, but he would ask me to come frequently. Yeah. I would get emails from him. Hey, when are you coming to the studio? When are you coming to the studio? When are you coming back?
So what was stopping you from being like, "Hey, I dream about animation to the point where I get emotional about it, and now I'm doing it, and I have a really great offer."
I was hurt. Honestly, I was hurt. The industry injured me, and I was making great money what I was doing. I started a small little house flipping business with my dad.
Oh, nice.
I was making bank. I was doing just fine.
House flipping business in Vancouver. I can imagine.
Yes, I was making bank, man. And I didn't really want to leave that, but the desire to animate inevitably won this struggle.
Was there like a moment or a day when that decision switched for you? Because it sounds to me like it was a tough decision. You're making bank, you're working with your dad, and then there's this other opportunity that already really hurt you. Was there a day where things became clear for you? Like, what really made that switch for you?
To me at that time, it was still a risk, like even an emotional risk, because this thing that I did injured me, and now I'm going back to do it again, even though it's a completely different environment. Sean's a great guy. I knew all this. I knew Kevin. Kevin was my friend from school who was there. Even though I knew all these things, I was still like, it was a risk. But there was a moment where I decided to do it, and I started commuting an hour and a half. So I didn't move back to Vancouver. I just started commuting. So it was an hour and a half to the studio every day, one way. And I'd come home, and I started my career again as an animator, with the animator title too.
Yeah, there you got it finally. Did you have a backup plan in your mind? Like, I can always go back to this house flipping thing if it doesn't work out. Like, was that part of your decision, or did you literally say like, I want to give up everything and pursue this without going back?
No, I had like security put things in place for myself. Like,
Yeah.
especially after that first experience, I was like, no, I'm not giving this as much as I did before because it wasn't worth it. But I would still, I still push myself as an animator. I wanted to push myself and I wanted to push the quality of the studio. And that's when the leadership role started to come in to play a little bit, was that desire to push the quality of a studio to the next level. And how do you do that? So I don't know. Should I get into that now about the?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So when I was an animator there, um, I just started showing initiative. And you have to keep in mind, this is a small studio uh, where you have room to show initiative. Sometimes you don't even have that much room to do that.
Mhm.
So that's why I think startups are a great place to start your animation career, is because they have lots of room for you to show initiative to help grow the company.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I did. The first thing I did as a lead animator was I created I guess you would call it an animation method of, hey, we have a low budget or a small budget. We have 10 animators. How do we get like, I don't know, 40 shots approved a day? Like, how do we do that? So I created a little bit of of an animation method of uh, how you can animate a shot as quickly as possible, but with a standard of quality that wasn't so terrible. So I started doing that. I started to develop okay, like, can anybody animate? Can I get the front desk person to come and animate? For instance, it was that easy to get shots to a certain level of quality.
Huh.
Yeah, so we could bring in all these new students without any experience, and their schools didn't teach them how to animate either. It was like the same thing. It was like, oh, you know how to open Maya, but you don't know how to animate.
Hmm.
But we would take these people in and we make animators out of them.
So I'm what you just said was really interesting to me. The front desk person, like the person like answering phones and keeping the office like organized as well.
Well, I mean, I would tease that person about,
Okay.
come do some animation. I can show you.
Yeah.
And I think I probably could. I think I could, at least to a certain standard, right? A certain level. Animation is not easy, but there is a method. You can put in a method to get you to a certain level.
So
Whereas,
what is the core foundation of that method to get to a certain level where you can teach anybody it?
I think just like a pose to pose style. So if you look at something like Paw Patrol, it's a super simple looking show, and you can tell they just go from pose to pose.
Yeah.
And the silhouette of the character is very clear. It's clear what they're doing. And what they're, how you don't need to do a lot of different acting or subtleties. It's just like, oh,
Hmm.
you know, in a talking headshot, we have two characters, or one's over the shoulder looking on the other character. You can just switch back and forth between those cameras and put in an animation method. It's not that great, but you can, I don't know, you can get by, I guess, is the way I would show it. So we were a small studio, and I would kind of show animators how to, basically what I needed to be shown as a junior myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's almost. Do you feel like your experience from that first studio helped you craft this workflow and teach others at Arcana?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I stole most of the workflow from them.
Well, I meant like they run you through the gauntlet. So you were like, here's what I would have wanted coming into a
Yeah.
studio type of thing. Yeah, but that's fair.
I mean, I can't say I stole that, but I mean, from my experience there, I said, hey, we can do something similar and it'll up our quality and
Yeah.
we can show the newbies how to do this.
So being at Arcana now, the studio is still growing and developing, and it's now producing features and like all these great things. And I think that's quite amazing because it's been pretty quick as a startup. What's been the hardest thing for you to develop or overcome from a personal level? I know you talked about your struggle of you were hurt. Maybe I'm already answering the question. Maybe that's the hardest thing to overcome. But as you've progressed with the studio and worked your way up, what is the hardest thing for you to have learned through this whole experience, be it a skill or a mentality that has helped you get to the next level?
Yeah, the hardest thing after getting over that first bit of just like the disillusionment of the industry or the sweat house or sweatshop animation studio or whatever, it was actually breaking out of that mindset of TV animation, simple poses, simple things, and bringing it to a level where there's a little bit of Disney magic. So it's like the next hardest thing was actually quality. It was actually taking a simple workflow and actually injecting quality to it, or massaging it enough that it becomes something beautiful. And that is still in development. Like, it's come a long way with me and with the team, and we're producing the best stuff we've ever produced. And I would say it's pretty damn competitive with
Nice.
a lot of stuff that's out there, especially in our latest feature, which I hope your listeners check out. Yeah, that was the hardest thing was, hey, how do we take this to the next level? How do we create beautiful animation? And allowing myself the time to do that, because in my background with these super fast TV studios that don't allow you any time, no pee breaks, that kind of stuff, it kind of gets in your head a little bit that you have to produce shots. You
Yeah.
have to produce approved animation and as fast as you can. So I think that was the next big challenge.
So how do you, with hitting deadlines and things like that, where do you slow down the process so you can, because, sorry, I'm trying to like digest what you said. So you went from pose to pose and you developed a whole process around that. And I'm assuming and you said it was tough to move to creating more magic in the animation and making things smoother. Did that change like your whole structure of workflow and the timelines? Like, how do you know that's going to pay off if you've been doing something and it's been successful, and then you have to like drastically change that workflow? Like, how do you take that risk?
Oh, that you hit the nail on the head. It's a huge risk. And my boss, Sean, kind of had to force me to do it because I wasn't used to doing that. And he's like, I would still be producing tons of shots, like approved. And then he'd be like, you know what? You have to slow this down. It's like, I know that's not what we've done in the past, but it's okay now to take a little time to think about these shots, to do a little bit of shoot your own reference, that sort of thing. And yeah, so
what is the drive behind that? Because like, are you trying to be competitive with certain studios? It sounds kind of like that. So you need to infuse this, or are you trying to hit a certain level of craft? Like, what is the drive behind changing the process to allow for this new way of animating?
oh, that's a tough question for me. I guess the drive for me personally is self-improvement. You always want to be learning. You always want to get better. You don't want to do the same thing every day and get the same results. You actually want to improve. So for me as an animation director now, I don't have as much time to animate, but what I can do is help the team improve and help everyone stay, I don't know, healthy in their mindset and not get that mentality of, I have to do this or else this.
Yeah.
You know, I have to, it's like a punishment system. It's like, I have to finish this or else, like, I don't know, it's over. My career is over. And if you animate under those conditions for yourself, your work quality sucks. It not only are your shots like, I don't know, the characters, you didn't put any magic into it. It's just like you fought your way through and grinded out the shot and it looks okay. It's
Yeah.
like, if you can just relax, give yourself time, even if everyone's telling you there's no time, just give yourself the time to create something that you like. And I gotta say, it yields the best results and nobody falls far behind.
Nice.
Yeah.
As you were saying that, it got me to thinking of some shots I animated recently where I got so in my head about during when I was animating it and watching it afterwards that I couldn't even feel like I could critique it very well because I was so focused on the technicalities that I was trying to pull off versus the overall thing. And even like watching it the next day, I already felt like it was so in my brain already. I couldn't look at it with a fresh mindset. So I had to show it to people who had never seen it before to get some real critique. I don't know if this resonates with you, but is there a way to get out of your head with a shot that's like kind of in that zone for you? I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but
I actually understand what you're saying. There is a way to get out. And what I do is I show somebody who's not in the industry.
yeah.
I show my wife, who she's a scientist. She's got no idea about whatever animation or art in general.
Don't tell her that. She probably won't take that very well.
No, the work she does is beautiful and it's artistic in a different way.
Yeah,
but, yeah. There, we can tell her that. But and she would say, "Oh, like his head looks funny," or something like that.
Yeah.
And I would take that comment and just dissect it. Like, okay, oh, and then I would see it. Then it would come back to me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's what I do personally. But
nice. I almost feel like like my thing is stop motion, and when you're done a shot, you can't change anything unless you redo the whole shot. So in that sense, it's almost like a blessing. But with 3D, you can go in, and same with 2D, and like continuously perfect it forever, right? Like you could spend your whole career on one shot.
I mean, you could.
So how do you know when it's done other than just hitting a deadline? When you get comments like, "Oh, the head is funny," and like, do you have to make a decision to say the budget doesn't allow for this, or it does allow for this, or like what?
Yeah. That's where I guess some leadership comes in, especially as an animation director person, is when you're working. Let's say I'm working with a junior animator, which we have in our studio, and we've gone through the shot 6, 7, 8 times, and it's been sent back for 8 revisions, and I'm now getting diminishing returns. I don't want to treat that person like I don't want to mistreat that person who's putting their hard work into this shot. So what I'll actually do is I'll approve their shot on the basis that if we keep working on it forever and ever and ever, the improvement, like, it's not going to improve that much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not going to get leaps and bounds better. It might get a little bit better. So sometimes you just have to let the shot through. You just have to, like, you know what? The shot is not the best, but is it working in the show? Is it working in the overall edit? Yes. Yeah. Then at that point you can say, you know what? That's okay.
That's fair. I've done that sometimes too, where I've redone a shot maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I still want to redo it, but then I have to say I have to work on the next shot. And if I have time at the end of everything, then I'll go back and redo this shot because diminishing returns. And then of course I never go back and redo that shot. And it's just
because it was okay, right?
And nobody says anything anyways. Nobody's like, that one shot was I get you. So okay, so you're an animation director, and I've heard this from other directors too, and I'm assuming you kind of picked on this too, but like, not knowing anything about the industry, I first came in and I was like, ooh, animation director, that sounds like you're doing animation all the time and you're doing like all the awesome shots. But it actually is, you're doing a lot less animation and more or less, letting other people do the animation and kind of critiquing and directing them. Can you give me day to day what you do?
Yeah, so I definitely have this nasty habit of setting up a list of shots that I approved that I know aren't like they weren't the best, and I
Yeah.
really want to change them, whether it be like the acting or the timing or the subtleties or the action or whatever. So I will actually have my own list that is not related to anybody in the studio. It's like the editor doesn't know about it, the boss doesn't know about it. It's just my own list. And I will visit those shots and I will animate them or reanimate them. And I say it's like a bad habit because it takes away from my actual job. I shouldn't be doing that. I need to be utilizing the people, the animators, in a more efficient way. Like it's not as efficient as if I go there and start to do that. So in some ways, when you do become an animation director from an animator, you have to start letting go of your own desire to animate something.
Yeah. So you
Um,
just said this was a secret list. Is this you exposing this thing?
well, I guess I am.
Okay.
If Sean listens to this podcast, he's going to know about this list. But
But I actually, what you just said actually makes total sense to me. Imagine you pulled yourself away from animation completely. You might eventually start to be removed from understanding what goes into the process and whatnot, because you're living off of a memory of animating versus still flexing that skill. So
mhm.
to me, it actually sounds like that is a good thing, and you should stay
Interesting.
animating.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, the way I communicate with animators is very animator to animator.
Yeah.
I don't communicate to my team like a director does per se. I try to say, hey, these controls, use this setting. It's the head control, it's the neck control. Use use COG space. Don't use local space. Whatever it might be. Like I try to talk to them on an animator to animator level. I don't say, hey, that shot looks odd. Can you fix it? Like
Yeah.
his head, I give very I give notes that make sense to me as an animator. So I think that what you just said does make sense. It probably does help. It probably does help me give feedback, which I strive to be more clear every day, because the simpler I can deliver feedback, uh, the better. I mean, we work with a lot of different people from different parts of the world
Yeah.
that are working in Vancouver, and sometimes there's a language barrier. So if I can deliver notes as clear as possible, as simple as possible, that's what I try. That's what I strive to do.
Nice. So it sounds like I'm just trying to think of like kind of the overall skills you need as an animation. Sorry. Uh, so there are 60 something studios, 3D studios in Vancouver.
Mhm.
Would you say Arcana is kind of a typical studio? You mentioned it's a startup type of deal, but is it typical in like if you were an animation director at another studio, would you be doing something very similar?
Uh, Personally, I don't think so. I think it's very atypical.
Yeah.
For instance, I do a lot of layout. So when I assign a scene to an animator, I'm now basically uh, re-storyboarding some of their section. Uh, on like I'll host my screen, I'll bring up the animatic, and I'll do drawovers over the animatic, and I'll deliver notes that way.
Okay.
And so normally that's a more of a layout department thing, where you have a whole department dedicated to layout and where the characters should be, and who continuity of characters and continuity of the scene. I take care of a lot of that actually, and I feel that's an atypical thing for an animation director to be doing.
Mhm.
At the same time, I don't mind that. I know it's improving my skill set, so I don't complain about doing it.
So what is an opportunity that you would have if you were to move to a different or maybe bigger studio as an animation director that you
That's
currently
a good,
don't have?
yeah, it's a good thing to good question actually. I could probably work in a layout department. I could probably be a layout soup or an animation director or maybe even animation supervisor. I could do, because I do handle a little bit of the production side of things here and there. At least I used to. Our studio has expanded quite a bit. And thank God we have a great production team now. But I actually used to do the production side of things, like getting a quota, hitting a deadline. I used to do a little bit of that stuff, which was, honestly, it was out of my pay grade, or at least out of my skill set. But I used to try and do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what are say if you were to replace yourself, you're like, I'm going back to house flipping, but I want to leave this studio in a good place. What are some of the skills or qualities that you would look for in somebody to replace you? I'm kind of asking this for, there's somebody listening being like, I want to be an animation director. And right now I'm, I don't know, a lead animator or animator. Like, what are the things I need to focus on to get to that level of animation director?
I would definitely want to work with a lead animator. I think lead animators are awesome.
Yeah. So what are the skills then
Yeah,
that you would want to replace yourself with? Like the top.
Yeah, so a lead animator will have skills like mentorship. They'll be able to mentor junior animators. They'll be able to balance balance quota with quality very well. They'll be able to communicate well and also take responsibility for their own shots. Like, yeah. Nice. So there's some of the qualities that I would.
So I'm already thinking, like, if I was a lead animator then, and I wasn't in a mentorship position, maybe I would want to start spending some extra time to go to some juniors maybe and offer some tips and things like that. Like, what could somebody do in their role right now to kind of up their game?
Yeah, what you could do is help the juniors get their shots approved. So if a junior is struggling with getting shots approved, if you were to initiate a relationship with the junior, like, hey, I know what your shots are missing. It's just a little push you need in this direction for the director to say that your shots are now meeting the quality level that we need. And yeah, just doing stuff like that. The animation director will notice that, hey, the junior is suddenly getting their shots approved, and that he's going to know that the lead was helping and everything.
Yeah.
And honestly, if a lead is helping the animation director as much as they can, I think that's already preparing you to be an animation director.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah.
So are you personally living the dream right now?
Am I living the dream?
You set out to, when you were, if you think back to little, Skylar making Teenage Mutant Ninja Dinosaurs underwater, and what he wanted to do in the world is have you met that? Or you still have a little way to go, or have you surpassed that, changed the dream? Like, what's your mind at right now?
I think I'm living a partial fulfillment of the dream. I still have other dreams. Yeah. So I've definitely achieved the dreams I had set out for myself. But as you grow and as you animate, you develop new dreams. It's like, more things that you think of and that you want to do and accomplish. But yeah, I would say that there are days I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I'm basically living the dream. Like, I know it's kind of a dangerous thing to say as well. Like, you always want to take satisfaction in your work for sure. But you also want to be, I don't know, I got this self-improvement thing where I really want to keep improving and keep dreaming, basically.
Totally. So you mentioned, first of all, I think that's awesome that you've hit your dreams along the way. And it seems natural to me for dreams to change as well. For me, it's like, as soon as I accomplish something that I worked so hard to get, it's like there's a 5-second celebration in my mind, and then it starts over, and it's like, what do I do now? And then there's like a new dream that comes, and it's like something that's scary and feels unattainable, and then slowly you figure it out and work towards it. So what is part of the dream that you're pursuing now, that you're animation director at a studio producing features and stuff for TV and like mentoring other animators, and you're in a place where you're not working, the crazy hours that made you quit. So what is that new path for you now?
I think in the super, super far away, distant land of the unknown and the future, I'd like to have my own studio. I
Yeah.
think I'd like to have my own production and create something unique. And I think that that's where my road has led me to. I love the film industry.
Yeah.
I still want to make a film.
Yeah.
I don't want to change industries. This is, something that I appreciate and value a lot.
When you say unique, what does that mean for you?
Like about the film industry.
Well, you said you wanted to make a film
Oh,
or
I see.
accomplish
Oh, yeah.
something that's unique.
I'm not quite sure, but
So I'm asking, it's like really hard.
you know what yeah, it's like unique. Well, maybe unique in the business format. Like maybe it's not your typical studio. Maybe it's a remote studio. Maybe it's uh, a show we make in the Unreal Engine, for instance. I've been studying a
Yeah.
lot about the possibilities of using Unreal Engine, and I think that's what I mean is a movie that's made in a different medium almost. Like
Mm.
I don't mind Maya, so we animate in a program called Maya, but it does start to feel a bit old and old school.
Yeah.
I'd like to evolve into something a little more modern at some point.
Nice. Well, I know that Sean is from our chat. He's got some interesting ideas about VR and things like that. So that might also be cool to work on, I guess.
I definitely would be. Yeah, Sean. One thing about Sean that's really cool is he's always, I don't know, he's always trying to stay ahead of the curve in terms of technology. And sometimes he gets a little ahead of himself, but other times I think that that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
maybe he inspired this from me. So you never know.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Just being in that environment would certainly change your perception on how things are. I'm
Mhm.
wondering, can you give us, you kind of gave a snapshot of there's 60-ish animation, 3D animation studios in Vancouver. What is the industry like overall? Is it super competitive? Like I know that Van Arts is there and a lot of people go there to work on CG films. Is it hard to get a job just as it was when you were starting out?
Hmm. I think it's easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of studios that are looking for a lot of different talent. There is quite a bit of competition, I would say, but I mean, I think that if you have a dream of working on a feature film, you can accomplish that in Vancouver,
Hmm.
and especially in a smaller role, like let's say you're fixing shots or something, or you're a production person who's just not maybe you're not an animator, but maybe you can. I know that they have a lot of people that fix shots, like where NPC Sonic, that movie was made in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a ton of artists and Detective Pikachu, a ton of artists just fixing shots and getting those movies on their resumes basically.
Hmm.
So it's a great place to do that. I think that the other roles like maybe animation director or technical director or pipeline TD, something like that, like we pretty hard to get. I think those roles are actually pretty sought after everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great place. It is competitive, but I think that eventually, if that's where you want to be, you can definitely get work in Vancouver.
So maybe if you're in Canada or the US and you want to do CG, it might be a good idea to check out or apply to things in Vancouver.
I definitely think so. I mean, as I told you before, it's the largest cluster in the world.
Yeah.
So if you want to work on visual effects, go ahead. There's tons of them. If you want to work on animation, go ahead. If you want 2D or Flash, go ahead. There's tons.
Nice.
If you want 3D, if you want TV, it's all there. There's 15 plus of each type.
Has COVID impacted the situation at all?
Yeah, I think that they're probably looking for more people.
Oh, okay.
People are,
Because I was thinking one thing with CG rendering is it takes a huge amount of computer power, RAM, et cetera, whatever. Does that mean that you have a station set up at your house to handle all that? Or is it sent over a network to be handled in somewhere like at the studio still?
yeah, so Arcana is a little bit different. I feel like he actually, Sean, gave out studio computers to all his employees.
Hmm.
So he literally sent them home on SkyTrains with massive towers. So the animators brought their computers home.
Sounds like a liability. I'd trip on the train and drop it all.
Well, Sean's willing to take the risk, so he does. But yeah, it's actually not too dissimilar from Toy Story. The original Toy Story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny story about that is that the servers got wiped, but somebody took home a tower, and they had the movie on the tower.
Crazy. Man, history would be totally different if it wasn't that for that one person.
I know. So funny.
Dang. Well, is there, I feel like we've chatted a lot. We've chatted about the industry and your experience and like what you would do to become an animation director. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to share as we wrap up the chat?
I think I'm good, Terry. I think that just to reinforce a point I may have kind of glossed over a little bit is don't animate anxiously. Don't animate under stress.
Yeah.
Just relax. Just do you and kind of let things be. I mean, it's going to work out. Your shot's going to get done. And animating under stress, it doesn't get the shot done faster. So you might as well just enjoy it.
Totally. And it's also like a marathon, not like I feel like school almost teaches you to do a marathon and a sprint at the same time. At least from my experience, you're constantly stressed out about everything.
Yep.
But yeah, I totally, that what you just said, that resonates a lot with me. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
I think that's it. Cool. If people want to become animation directors, just become good leads.
Yeah.
That's another thing to write down somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's a good tip.
Yeah. If you're a good lead, you will become, you will get your own shot at being a director at some point.
Sweet. Well, Skylar, thank you so much for coming on the chat. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Terry. And thanks for the reschedule, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And if you're listening and you want to check out Skylar's work or get in touch with him or all that jazz, you can do so by checking out his website, which is skylarzerr.com. And I'll include that link in the description of this chat. And that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye.